You want me to do what? The server's face had gone pale, his hands trembling slightly as he held his notepad. You heard me. Choi Yuna didn't bother looking up from her wine glass, swirling the expensive vintage with a lazy flick of her wrist. Go find a cleaning woman. The old one mopping the hallway. Bring her in here. Ma'am, I don't pay you to think. Now she looked up, and the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. I pay you to do what I say. Bring her here. The server glanced desperately toward CEO Choi Sung-woo, silently begging for intervention. The CEO took a long sip of his whiskey and said nothing. Today would be nice, Yuna added, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. Before I get bored enough to start finding other forms of entertainment. The server practically ran from the room. Around the table, 12 executives and their wives sat in varying states of discomfort. Some studied their plates. Others exchanged knowing glances. A few of the wives leaned toward each other, already anticipating the show. Everyone knew what was about to happen. No one said a word, because this was Yuna's world. They were all just living in it, and praying they never became her next target. Darling, one of the braver wives ventured, what exactly are you planning? Entertainment, Soo-young. This dinner is absolutely dead. Yuna gestured at the table of frozen executives. Look at them, talking about quarterly projections like robots. I need something interesting, something human. She smiled, and there was nothing warm in it. What's more human than watching someone squirm? The doors to the private dining room opened, and the woman they brought in, the woman in the faded gray uniform with rough hands and downcast eyes, had no idea that the next 15 minutes would expose a secret that would destroy half the careers in this room. But she would. Soon. Stop right here. I need you to hit that subscribe button immediately. Not in a minute. Not when the story gets more interesting. Right now. Because what walks into this room is going to change everything. The woman they're about to humiliate isn't what she appears to be. Not even close. And when the truth comes out, when you see what she's been hiding for 3 years, you're going to understand why I demanded you subscribe before we got there. Do it now. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and drop a comment telling me what you think this cleaning lady is hiding. Then keep watching. Trust me, you're not ready for what's coming. The woman in gray stood just inside the doorway, her posture curved inward like someone trying to take up as little space as possible. She was maybe 60 years old, maybe older, the kind of age that hard work etched into faces prematurely. Her hair was streaked with gray, pulled back in a practical bun. Her uniform had been washed so many times it had lost its original color. Her shoes were worn at the heels. She looked exactly like what everyone in the room expected to see. Nobody, nothing, disposable. Come closer, Yuna commanded, crooking her finger like she was summoning a pet. Don't be shy. We don't bite. Nervous laughter rippled around the table. The woman walked forward. Each step was hesitant. Her eyes stayed fixed on the floor, tracking the patterns in the expensive carpet like she was memorizing an escape route. She stopped 5 feet from Yuna's chair. Closer. 3 feet. What's your name? The woman's voice came out barely above a whisper. Kim Soonja, madam. Kim Soonja. Yuna rolled the name around her mouth like she was tasting something unpleasant. Tell me, Soonja, how long have you worked in our building? 3 years, madam. 3 years. Did you hear that, everyone? 3 years of dedicated service. Yuna's voice dripped with mock admiration. 3 years of mopping our floors and scrubbing our toilets. How absolutely inspiring. More laughter. Louder this time. The executives were relaxing into the entertainment, sensing that participation was expected. Soonja said nothing. Sit down. Yuna pointed to an empty chair at the far end of the table, the seat farthest from anyone important. Join us for dinner. I insist. The woman hesitated. Madam, I shouldn't. I said I insist. The sweetness vanished from Yuna's voice, replaced by something cold and hard. Unless you'd prefer to discuss your employment situation with HR tomorrow morning? The threat hung in the air like poison gas. Soonja sat. She kept her hands folded in her lap, her shoulders hunched, her eyes still carefully avoiding direct contact with anyone at the table. She looked like a mouse that had wandered into a room full of cats. Now then, Eunice settled back in her chair, clearly enjoying herself. Tell us about yourself, Sunja. Where are you from? What did you do before you were blessed with the opportunity to clean up after successful people? The question was designed to wound. It succeeded, but not in the way Yuna expected. Something flickered across Sunja's face. There and gone so fast that only someone watching very, very carefully would have caught it. Not pain, not embarrassment, something else entirely. Something that looked almost like anticipation. I'm from Busan originally, madam, Sunja said, her voice still quiet, still deferential. I moved to Seoul many years ago. Busan? How quaint. Yuna clapped her hands together in exaggerated delight. And what did you do there? Let me guess. She tapped her chin thoughtfully. Fish market? Factory worker? Street food vendor? Something suitably humble, I'm sure. I worked in various positions, madam. Various positions. How mysterious. Yuna leaned forward, sending blood. Come now, don't be modest. What kind of work could someone like you possibly have done? Besides cleaning, of course. Besides the only thing you're clearly qualified for. The executives laughed. The wives tittered behind their hands. The CEO stared at the wall and pretended to be elsewhere. And Sunja, the invisible, powerless, disposable cleaning woman, raised her eyes for the first time. She looked directly at Yuna, and something in the air shifted. Do you really want to know, madam? Her voice was still quiet, but something in it had changed. Because once I answer that question, I don't think this evening will go the way you're expecting. Yuna's smile flickered, just for a moment, just long enough for something cold to brush against her spine. Then she laughed, dismissing the sensation. How dramatic! A cleaning lady with secrets. She looked around the table, inviting everyone to share the joke. By all means, Sunja, tell us about your mysterious past. I'm sure it's absolutely fascinating. Sunja nodded slowly. Very well, madam. You asked. She straightened in her chair, and the woman who sat up was not the same woman who had sat down. The hunched shoulders squared, the bowed head lifted, the subservient posture dissolved like a costume being removed after a performance. My name is Kim Sunja, she said, and her voice now carried to every corner of the room with quiet authority. But that's not the name I was born with. My maiden name was Park. Park Sunja. She paused. Some of you may recognize that name. Park, as in Park Industries, as in the Park family that founded this company 32 years ago. The room went dead silent. Yuna's wine glass slipped from her fingers. It shattered against the table, red wine spreading across the white tablecloth like blood. As in, Sunja continued, the woman who built this building, this company, every single thing you're sitting in, eating from, and profiting by. She stood, and somehow, impossibly, she seemed taller than everyone in the room. I'm the founder of Hanwha Corporation. I am the majority shareholder. I am the mother of your chairman, Park Minjun. Her eyes found Yuna, who had gone the color of ash. And for the past 3 years, I have been cleaning your toilets and mopping your floors. She smiled. It was not a kind smile. Would you like to know why? If you felt your heart stop during that. Reveal. If you felt the shift in power, the moment when everything changed, then like this video right now. Like it because what comes next is even more devastating. Like it because Sunja is about to explain why she spent 3 years pretending to be invisible. Like it because the consequences for everyone in that room are about to come crashing down. Like it. Share it with someone who's ever been underestimated. And drop a comment telling me, did you see that coming? Or did it catch you completely off guard? Then keep watching, because the real reckoning hasn't even started yet. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. 12 executives and their wives sat frozen in their seats, their minds desperately trying to process what they had just heard. The CEO, Yuna's husband, had gone so pale he looked like he might faint, and Yuna herself stood motionless, wine dripping from the table onto her designer dress, her mouth opening and closing without any sound coming out. Sunja let the silence stretch. Let them feel it. Let the full weight of what they had done settle onto their shoulders like a physical burden. 3 years ago, she finally said, I received an anonymous letter from someone claiming to work at this company. They described a culture that horrified me. Executives who treated lower-level employees like servants. policies designed to extract maximum work while providing minimum dignity. A fundamental rot at the core of everything my husband and I had built. She began walking slowly around the table. I didn't believe it. Not fully. I had trusted the people we put in place. I had believed they would carry forward our values even after my husband died, and I stepped away from daily operations. She stopped behind the VP of marketing, a man who had laughed the loudest at Yuna's jokes. So I decided to find out for myself. The VP went rigid. I applied for a position on the cleaning staff. I used my maiden name. I dressed in clothes that would make me invisible. And I started working the night shift, when executives stayed late, when guards relaxed, when people revealed who they really were because they thought no one important was watching. She placed a hand on the VP's shoulder. He flinched like she had burned him. "Do you remember, Mr. Kong, what you said to me 6 months ago in the break room?" I don't. Let me refresh your memory." Soonja's voice was pleasant, conversational, utterly terrifying. "You spilled coffee on the floor. Deliberately. Then you looked at me and said, 'That's what you're for, isn't it? Cleaning up our messes. Try to be useful.'" The color drained from his face. I cleaned it up. I said nothing. And I wrote it down in my notebook with the date, the time, and the names of the 2 junior executives who watched you do it, and said nothing. She moved on. "Mrs. Lee, head of human resources. The person responsible for ensuring our workplace culture reflects our values." The HR director looked like she wanted to disappear in her chair. "Tell everyone about the split-shift policy you implemented for cleaning staff. The one that requires them to work 4 hours in the morning, leave, and return for 4 hours at night, making it nearly impossible for them to hold second jobs or arrange affordable childcare. That policy was for operational efficiency. That policy saved the company $3 million per year while making the lives of our lowest-paid workers significantly harder." Soonja's voice hardened. "And when a cleaning supervisor brought concerns to your office, you told her, and I was mopping the floor outside your door when you said this, if they don't like the hours, they can find other jobs." Mrs. Lee's face crumpled. "I have 3 years of observations." Soonja continued her slow circuit around the table. "Every act of cruelty I witnessed. Every policy designed to benefit executives at the expense of workers. Every moment when someone could have done the right thing and chose not to." She stopped behind the CEO. "Including you, Mr. Choi." Sung Woo's hands were trembling. "You sat at this table for 15 minutes while your wife tormented a woman you believed to be powerless. You said nothing. You did nothing. You watched her threaten my job and made no move to intervene. I didn't know. That's exactly the point." Soonja's voice cut like a knife. "You didn't know who I was. You thought I was nobody. And because you thought I was nobody, you felt no obligation to protect me from cruelty." She stepped back, addressing the entire room. "That is the test, you see. Not how you treat people when you know they're important, but how you treat people when you believe they can do nothing for you." She looked at Yuna. "You failed that test spectacularly." The doors to the private dining room burst open. Everyone turned. And there, framed in the doorway like an avenging angel in a $3,000 suit, stood Park Min-jun, chairman of the board, the real power behind everything. And very clearly, very obviously, very furiously, Soonja's son. Subscribe right now if you haven't already, because the next scene is where the consequences start landing. Min-jun has just walked in on the aftermath of his mother's humiliation. He knows everything that happened, and he's about to start ending careers. Subscribe, hit that notification bell, and drop a comment. What do you think happens to Yuna? To the CEO? To everyone who laughed? I want to hear your predictions. Because I promise you, what actually happens is even more satisfying than revenge. Chairman Park, the CEO, stumbled to his feet, nearly knocking over his chair. "We weren't expecting. I thought you were in Singapore. I was." Min-jun's voice could have frozen fire. "I came back when I received a rather interesting phone call from security. Something about my mother being summoned to provide entertainment at a dinner party." His eyes swept the room, cataloging every face, every expression, every person who had participated in what had happened. "I see the entertainment has concluded." He walked to his mother's side, and for a moment, the mask of the cold corporate chairman slipped. He touched her arm gently. a son checking on his mother. Are you alright? I'm Fina. Sunja patted his hand. I've endured far worse from far better people. The insult landed on the room like a slap. Min Jun's expression hardened again as he turned to face the assembled executives. Let me make sure I understand what happened here tonight. My mother, the founder of this company, the woman who built everything you've spent your careers profiting from, was dragged into this room to be mocked. For entertainment. Nobody answered. She was asked where she was from, what menial jobs she must have held, whether she sold street food from cart. His voice rose with each sentence. She was threatened with termination if she didn't comply with the demands of a woman who married into this company and has never contributed a single productive day to its operations. Yuna made a small sound, something between a gasp and a sob. Minyun ignored her. And while this was happening, while my mother was being humiliated for your amusement, every single person at this table sat in silence. Not one of you objected. Not one of you intervened. Not one of you showed the basic human decency to say, perhaps we shouldn't torment an elderly woman for laughs. You let that sink in. My mother asked a very important question before I arrived. She asked if you wanted to know why she spent 3 years working as a cleaner in her own company. He looked at Sunja. Would you like to tell them? Or shall I? I'll tell them. Sunja stepped forward, her presence somehow commanding the room despite her gray hair and worn uniform. I did it because I needed to see the truth. Not the truth people perform when they know the founder is watching. The real truth. Who you are when you think no one important can see. She began walking among them again, and what I found broke my heart. She stopped behind a younger executive, one who had laughed less loudly than the others but had laughed nonetheless. Some of you are simply weak. You went along with cruelty because it was easier than standing up against it. You laughed at jokes that disgusted you because you were afraid of what would happen if you didn't. She moved on. Some of you are genuinely cruel. You enjoyed watching me be humiliated because it made you feel powerful. Because tormenting someone you saw as beneath you is the only way you could feel important. She stopped behind Yuna. And some of you, her voice dropped to something almost gentle, which somehow made it more devastating. Some of you are so broken inside that you can only feel alive when you're destroying someone else. Yuna's composure shattered. I didn't know. I couldn't have known. You can't blame me for not knowing who you were. I can blame you for exactly what you did knowing who I wasn't. Sunja's voice hardened. You knew I was a cleaning woman. You knew I had no power. You knew I couldn't fight back. And that knowledge didn't make you kind. It made you vicious. She stepped back. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are, Mrs. Choi. Not what you do when there are consequences, but what you do when you think there are none. The board meeting was called for 9 a.m. the following morning. Nobody slept. The executives spent the night making frantic phone calls, trying to gauge how much damage had been done to their careers. The wise who had laughed at Yuna's jokes suddenly remembered urgent social engagements that would take them out of the city for the foreseeable future. The CEO sat alone in his study, drinking whiskey and contemplating the ruins of his professional life. And Yuna, the instigator, the ringleader, the woman who had set this entire disaster in motion, locked herself in her bedroom and refused to speak to anyone. At 8:45 a.m., the senior leadership team assembled in the main conference room. Sunja was already there. She had changed out of her cleaning uniform. In its place, she wore a traditional hanbok in deep navy blue, formal, dignified, unmistakably authoritative. Her gray hair was styled simply but elegantly. Her posture held the quiet power of someone who had built an empire and was ready to reshape it. The transformation was complete. The invisible cleaning lady had become the founder again, and everyone in the room knew their fates rested in her hands. Thank you all for coming, she said, her voice carrying the calm certainty of absolute power. I'm sure you spent last night wondering what happens next. I'm here to tell you. She opened a folder in front of her. Over the past 3 years, I have documented every significant interaction I witnessed in this building. Every act of kindness, every act of cruelty, every policy decision that prioritized profit over people. Every moment when someone revealed their true character. She looked around the room. Some of you will be relieved by what I found. Others will not. She turned to the first page. Let's begin. Like this video right now. Do it before the next sentence, because what you're about to witness is corporate justice at its most satisfying. Soonja is about to go through this room person by person, reading their crimes out loud, determining their fates based on 3 years of silent observation. Careers will end. Promotions will be given. Lives will change forever. Like it. Subscribe if you haven't already. And drop a comment. If you had this power, if you knew everyone's secrets, would you show mercy? Or would you burn it all down? Tell me your answer. Then keep watching. Part 2. The Judgment. The first name Soonja called made everyone else exhale with relief. It wasn't them. Not yet. Mr. Park Dong-won, Vice President of Operations. The man in question went rigid in his chair. He was in his mid-50s, with the polished appearance of someone who had spent decades climbing the corporate ladder and the desperate eyes of someone who knew he had reached the end of the climb. Yes, ma'am. 14 months ago you encountered me in the elevator. Do you remember? He swallowed hard, late because of it. Tae-young's expression shifted from fear to confusion. You didn't know who I was. You didn't expect any reward. You simply saw a person in pain and chose compassion over convenience. She stood. That is the kind of leader this company needs. That is the kind of person who should be making decisions about the lives of our employees. She extended her hand. Congratulations, Mr. Kim. You're our new Chief Operations Officer. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Tae-young sat frozen, unable to process what had just happened. I don't know what to say. Say you'll remember this moment. Remember that you were promoted not because you impressed someone powerful, but because you were kind to someone powerless. Soonja's voice carried weight. That's the standard now. That's how we measure leadership in this company. She turned to address the entire room. I have files on everyone. The good and the bad. The kind and the cruel. In the coming weeks, there will be more changes. Promotions for those who passed the test. Consequences for those who failed. Her gaze swept across the assembled faces. But this isn't about revenge. It's about restoration. My husband and I built this company on the belief that every person who contributes to our success deserves respect. We treated our first employees like family. We believed that dignity wasn't a privilege to be earned. It was a right to be protected. Her voice hardened. Somewhere along the way, that got lost. The money increased. The power concentrated. And the people at the top forgot that their success was built on the backs of people at the bottom. She paused. That instant, there was one person Soonja had not yet addressed. Yuna, the CEO's wife, had been sitting in a corner of the conference room, placed there by her husband, as if her presence at the board meeting was required, but her participation was not. She had watched the proceedings with the glazed expression of someone in shock, flinching each time Soonja called a new name. Now, as the formal business concluded, Soonja turned to face her. Mrs. Choi. Yuna's head jerked up. You and I need to have a private conversation. I don't. It wasn't a request. Soonja walked toward a side room, clearly expecting Yuna to follow. After a long moment, she did. The door closed behind them. The side room was small, a private space used for sensitive conversations. 2 chairs faced each other across a modest table. No window, no audience. Just 2 women whose paths should never have crossed. Sit, Soonja said. Yuna sat. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Soonja asked a question that Yuna clearly hadn't expected. How old were you when you learned that cruelty was power? Yuna's composure cracked. What? The way you treat people. The way you use humiliation as entertainment. The way you target anyone you perceive as weak. Soonja's voice was surprisingly gentle. That behavior doesn't come from nowhere. Someone taught you that. Someone showed you that the way to feel powerful was to make others feel powerless. Yuna's eyes filled with tears. You don't know anything about me. I know you married Sung-woo when you were 23. I know you came from a family with very little money. I know that in the 7 years of your marriage, you've transformed from an insecure young woman into someone who terrifies everyone around her. Soonja paused. I know that transformation didn't happen by accident. The tears spilled over. I had to. Yuna's voice broke. When I first came into this world, your world, Everyone looked at me like I was nothing, like I didn't belong. The other wives, the executives, everyone. They treated me like a gold digger who had tricked their way into money. So you decided to become the predator instead of the prey. I had to survive. No. Sunja's voice was firm but not unkind. You had to adapt. You chose to become cruel. Those are different things. She leaned forward. I understand the impulse. When you've been treated as less than human, there's a temptation to prove your worth by treating others the same way. To climb the ladder by stepping on the people below you. Her eyes held Eunice. But that path leads nowhere good. It might give you power, but it hollows you out. It might make people fear you, but it ensures they'll never love you. It might protect you from vulnerability, but it also protects you from genuine connection. Una was openly crying now. What do you want from me? An apology? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I don't want an apology for what you did to me. I'm 72 years old. I've endured worse and survived. Sunja's voice softened. What I want is for you to understand something. She reached across the table and took Yuna's hands. The younger woman flinched, then stilled. The cleaning woman you tormented last night has a name. Park Mi-young. She's 63 years old. She has 2 grandchildren she's raising because their parents were killed in a car accident. She works 2 jobs to afford their school fees. She cries in the bathroom when she thinks no one is watching because she's exhausted and scared and doesn't know how she's going to keep going. Sunja's grip tightened. She is a human being, with a story, with pain, with dignity that exists whether you acknowledge it or not. Yuna's sobs intensified. Last night, you didn't just humiliate me. You humiliated her. Every day, in 100 small ways, you humiliate people like her. And you do it because somewhere in your mind, you've convinced yourself that they're less than you, that their suffering doesn't matter, that they exist only to make you feel important. She released Yuna's hands. I can't punish you for who you are. I can't fire you from a position you don't hold. All I can do is tell you the truth and hope it matters. She stood. You have a choice, Yuna. You can continue being the person you've become. Feared, isolated, empty. Or you can start the long, difficult work of becoming someone else. Someone who doesn't need to hurt others to feel powerful. Someone who finds strength and kindness instead of cruelty. She walked toward the door. The choice is yours. No one can make it for you. Wait, Sunja paused. Why are you being kind to me? After what I did, why aren't you destroying me like you destroyed the others? Sunja turned back. Because destruction is easy. Anyone with power can destroy. The real challenge, the real test of character, is choosing to build instead. She smiled sadly. And because I recognize something in you, Yuna, the hunger, the fear, the desperate need to matter. I had those things too, once before I found a better way. She opened the door. I'm not forgiving you. What you did was wrong, and there will be consequences. But I'm also not giving up on you. Not yet. She stepped through the doorway. Think about what I've said. Really think about it. And if you decide you want to change, if you decide the person you become isn't the person you want to be, come find me. Why would you help me? Because everyone deserves a second chance, Yuna. Even the people who haven't earned it yet. The door closed behind her. Subscribe right now. Not because I'm asking, but because you've just witnessed something rare, mercy in the midst of justice. Sunja had the power to destroy Yuna completely. She chose something harder instead. Subscribe because this story isn't over. The changes Sunja has set in motion are going to transform this company and everyone in it. Subscribe because what happens next shows you what real leadership looks like. And drop a comment. Do you think Yuna deserves mercy? Can someone who's been that cruel really change? I want to know what you think. Because this story is about all of us, about who we are when no one important is watching, and who we could become if we choose to try. Part 3. The transformation. The changes came faster than anyone expected. Within a month, the company was unrecognizable. The split shift policy for cleaning staff was eliminated. Benefits were upgraded to match other full-time employees. A new requirement mandated that every executive learn the names of the maintenance workers on their floor and greet them by name at least once a day. Some executives complained. They said it was excessive, micromanaging beneath their positions to memorize the names of janitors. Those executives were encouraged to update their resumes. A new training program was implemented. Every new hire, from the mailroom to the C-suite, spent their first week shadowing cleaning and maintenance crews. They learned what it felt like to be invisible, what it felt like to clean up after people who didn't acknowledge your existence, what it felt like to matter less than the furniture. The program was mandatory. No exceptions. Some lessons can't be taught in a classroom, Sunja explained at the program's launch. You have to live them. You have to feel them. Otherwise, they're just words. The executives who went through the program emerged changed. Not all of them. Some people were beyond reaching, but enough. Enough to shift the culture. Enough to start building something different. And 6 months after the dinner party that had changed everything, something unexpected happened. Yuna came to find Sunja. The meeting took place in Sunja's private office, a modest space that she had chosen deliberately over the lavish executive suites. Simple furniture. No expensive art. A single photograph of her late husband on the desk. Yuna stood in the doorway, hesitant to enter. You came, Sunja said, looking up from her paperwork. I wasn't sure you would. Neither was I. Yuna's voice was different now. Quieter. Less sharp. I've been thinking about what you said. Sit down. Yuna sat. For a long moment, neither spoke. My husband divorced me, Yuna finally said. 3 months ago. He said he couldn't be married to someone who had embarrassed him so publicly. He said my behavior had become a liability to his career. She laughed bitterly. His career, which ended 2 months after mine. Turns out the board wasn't thrilled about the CEO who sat and watched while his wife tormented the founder. I heard about the divorce and the termination. Sunja's voice was neutral. How are you doing? Terribly. Wonderfully. I don't know. Yuna shook her head. For the first few weeks, I was so angry. At you. At him. At everyone who abandoned me. I kept thinking about how unfair it was. How I didn't deserve to lose everything. And now, Yuna's voice cracked. Now I've started thinking about the people I hurt. Not just you. Everyone. The assistants I berated. The service workers I mocked. The people I stepped on because it made me feel tall. Tears began sliding down her cheeks. I've been volunteering at a shelter. For homeless women. It was the most humiliating thing I could think of. Me who used to sneer at charity galas, actually doing the work instead of just writing checks. She looked up at Sunja. And I met this woman there. Mi Young. She told me her story. Her husband died. Her children died. She's raising her grandchildren alone. She works 2 jobs and still can't make ends meet. Her voice dropped to a whisper. She's the cleaning lady. The one from your building. The one I would have tormented the same way I tormented you if I'd had chance. Sunja was silent. I apologized to her. It took me 3 weeks to work up the courage. I told her what I used to be. What I did. Why I was really at the shelter. Not out of kindness, but because I was trying to fix something broken inside myself. What did she say? Yuna smiled through her tears. She said she already knew. Said she recognized me the moment I walked in. Said she'd been wondering when I was going to stop pretending to be kind and just be kind. She took a shaky breath. She forgave me. I don't know why. I don't know how. But she did. Sunja rose from her desk and walked around to sit in the chair beside Yuna. Do you know why she forgave you? Yuna shook her head. Because carrying anger is heavy. Because forgiveness is as much for the person forgiving as for the person being forgiven. Sunja paused. And because she could see that you were trying to change. That you weren't asking for forgiveness to escape consequences. You were asking because you genuinely understood what you had done wrong. She took Yuna's hand. That's the beginning. The very first step. Understanding that you were wrong. Feeling it. Not just knowing it in your head, but carrying it in your heart. What's the next step? Living differently. Day by day. Choice by choice. Not because you're trying to earn forgiveness, but because you've become a different person. A person who couldn't do what you used to do, even if you wanted to. Yuna was quiet for a long moment. I don't know if I can. I was cruel for so long. It's like a reflex now. Even when I try to be kind, I hear my old voice in my head telling me I'm being weak. Telling me people will take advantage. Telling me the only way to survive is to attack before you're attacked. Those voices don't disappear overnight. Maybe they never disappear completely. Sunja's grip tightened. but they can get quieter. The more you choose kindness, the less power the old voices have. Eventually, they become whispers, then echoes, then just memories. She released Yuna's hand and stood. You asked why I didn't destroy you. Why I offered you mercy when you had shown me none. Yuna nodded. Because I believe in second chances. Because I believe that people can change. And because she paused. Because 30 years ago, someone gave me a second chance when I didn't deserve it. I was young and ambitious, and just as ruthless as you. I hurt people to get what I wanted. I treated those beneath me as stepping stones. Yuna looked up in surprise. You, me? Sunja smiled sadly. My husband saw what I was becoming. He could have left me. Instead, he confronted me. He showed me what I was doing. And he gave me the choice you have now. Keep becoming someone terrible, or start the work of becoming someone better. What did you choose? I chose him. I chose change. It wasn't easy. It took years. But eventually, I became someone I wasn't ashamed of. Someone my children could be proud of. Someone who could look in the mirror without flinching. She walked to the window, looking out at the city she had helped build. That's what I'm offering you, Yuna. Not forgiveness. You have to earn that. Not absolution. That's not mine to give. Just the chance to become someone different. To write a new story. She turned back. Are you willing to do the work? Yuna rose from her chair. Her designer clothes were gone, replaced by something simpler. Her perfect makeup had been washed away by tears. She looked older, smaller, more human. But she also looked, for the first time since Sunja had met her, genuinely hopeful. Yes, she said. I am willing. Good. Sunja walked to her desk and pulled out a folder. Then let's talk about what that looks like. 1 year later, the anniversary of the dinner party that had changed everything. Sunja stood at the window of her office, watching the sun set over Seoul. The city glowed with millions of lights, millions of lives, millions of stories, millions of small acts of kindness and cruelty happening simultaneously in ways no one would ever fully see. The door opened behind her. Mother, Minjun entered, carrying 2 cups of tea. He had developed the habit over the past year, stopping by her office at the end of each day, sharing a quiet moment before they both went home. The numbers came in today, he said, handing her a cup. Employee satisfaction is up 47% from last year. Turnover is down 62%. Productivity has increased in every division. Money isn't the point. I know, but it helps convince the board that doing the right thing is also good business. He smiled. Not that they need much convincing anymore. After what happened to the people who fought your changes, everyone's pretty motivated to be decent human beings. Fear isn't the same as genuine change. No. But sometimes fear is what starts the change. And then the change becomes genuine. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city lights flicker on. I saw Yuna today, Minjun said eventually. At the shelter. How was she doing? Better. She's running their job training program now. Teaching women how to interview, how to dress professionally, how to navigate the working world. He paused. She's good at it. Really good. Turns out all those years of social manipulation translate pretty well into teaching people how to present themselves. Skills are neutral. It's how you use them that matters. She asked about you. Said she wanted to thank you again. She doesn't need to keep thanking me. She's thanked me enough. I think that's why she keeps doing it. Because you told her she didn't have to. Minjun shook his head. She's different now. I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't seen it myself. The woman I watched humiliate my mother is gone. Someone else is there instead. Not someone else. The person she always could have been if someone had shown her a different path. You really believe that? That everyone has the capacity for change? Sunja was quiet for a moment. Not everyone. Some people are too far gone, too committed to cruelty, too invested in the story they've told themselves about who they are. But more people than you'd think. More people than they think, even about themselves. She turned to face her son. That's what I learned, working as a cleaner for 3 years. That most people aren't good or evil. They're just shaped by their circumstances, by the choices they make, by the consequences that do or don't follow those choices. And when there are no consequences, people reveal who they really are. The kind ones stay kind. The cruel ones become crueler. She paused. That's why the consequences I implemented mattered so much. Not as punishment, as teaching, showing people that their choices have weight, that how they treat others, even the invisible ones, shapes the world they live in. Minyun nodded slowly. The company is better now. Everyone says so. The company is better because the people are better. Or at least, because the people are being given the chance to be better. Sunja smiled. That's all we can really do. Create opportunities for growth. Model the behavior we want to see, and trust that, given the choice, most people will choose kindness over cruelty. And the ones who won't, we show them the door. Kindly, but firmly. She finished her tea. Some lessons can only be taught through consequences. And some people can only learn by losing what they thought they'd never lose. She set down her cup. But that's enough philosophy for one evening. Go home. See your family. Tell your children about their grandmother who spent 3 years cleaning toilets to save a company. Minyun left. They already know the story. They make me tell it every night. Good. It's a story worth telling. A story about what happens when you look beneath the surface. When you see people for who they really are. When you give second chances to people who are willing to earn them. She walked to her desk and picked up a photograph, the only personal item in the office. Her husband, smiling at the camera, alive with the joy he had carried throughout their marriage. Your father would have been proud of you, of all of it. The company, the changes, the proof that what we built could survive anything, even our own absence. She touched the photograph gently. We built this for people. All people, not just the executives, not just the shareholders. Everyone who walks through those doors, from the CEO to the cleaning staff. She set the photograph back down. And now, finally, it's becoming what we always meant it to be. That night, Sunja walked through the building one last time. Not as the founder, not as the cleaning lady, just as herself. She passed through lobbies and hallways, break rooms and offices. She saw security guards who nodded to her with genuine warmth. Cleaning staff who stopped to chat about their grandchildren. Executives who held doors and said thank you and remembered that everyone deserved to be treated with dignity. The company was different now. Not perfect, never perfect, but better. And that was enough. That was always enough. She stopped at the window on the 42nd floor, the same floor where the dinner party had happened, where her humiliation had become her triumph, where everything had changed. The city stretched out before her, bright and alive and full of stories she would never know. We did it, my love, she whispered to the ghost she carried with her everywhere. We really did it. And somewhere in the city below, in a shelter where women were learning to rebuild their lives, a former socialite named Yuna was teaching a class about dignity and respect. Lessons she had learned the hardest way possible, lessons she was now passing on to people who needed them. The cycle of kindness continued. The transformation was complete, and the cleaning lady who had built an empire had finally found peace. The Yindi. If this story moved you, I need you to do something right now. Like this video. Not for me, for the message. For everyone who's ever been invisible. For everyone who's ever been treated as less than human because of their job, their status, their circumstances. Like it because stories like this need to be seen, and your engagement helps that happen. Subscribe to this channel. I tell stories about power, justice, dignity, and the moments that reveal who we really are. If this resonated with you, there are more stories waiting. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss one. Share this video. Send it to your boss. Send it to your colleagues. Send it to anyone who needs a reminder that the way you treat people who can do nothing for you is the truest measure of your character. Share it because this message matters, and it only spreads if you help spread it. Drop a comment. Tell me about a time you were invisible. Tell me about a time someone saw you when no one else did. Tell me about the moment in this story that hit you the hardest. I read every comment, and I want to hear your story. Because here's the truth. Every day, you interact with invisible people. Cleaning staff, security guards, delivery workers, restaurant servers, people whose names you might not know, whose stories you might never hear, whose dignity exists whether you acknowledge it or not. How you treat them matters. Not because someone might be watching, not because there might be consequences, but because it reveals who you really are. Soonja spent 3 years watching. She learned everything she needed to know about every person in that building. Not from their resumes or their performance reviews, but from how they treated the woman with the mop. So ask yourself, if someone was watching you that way, what would they see? And if the answer isn't something you're proud of, tomorrow is a chance to start becoming someone better. The choice is yours. The choice is always yours. Make it count.